0.7 miles according to the sat-nav directions, and I've just driven down from Yorkshire. I'm in Somerset, not very far from, well, I've passed through Bristol and various other places, and I'm now on the lookout for a white house. It's where Tim Sanders lives, and the reason why I'm here, obviously, to meet up with Tim. Tomorrow we're heading to France together and we're going cycling. We're going to spend the next couple of weeks cycling La Vélo Francette. The weather's turned a little bit. I've got to turn left here, and I'm assuming I will see the White House. It says construction traffic. Perhaps he's building an extension. Welcome to episode 91 of the Cycling Europe podcast, and for the first time this podcast is being recorded on a ferry. I'm on a ferry in the middle of the English Channel, and I'm with Tim Sanders. Now, Tim Sanders has appeared on quite a few episodes of the podcast in the past. He's quite an experienced cycle tourer, so welcome to the podcast, Tim.
Thank you very much.
Just to remind everybody listening, if they've forgotten about your previous appearances, your cycle touring experience is quite extensive. Remind us.
Yes, it's probably not as extensive as some, but I've generally managed to cycle tour most years, and it's either been in Europe. I've managed a longish tour in Chile at the end of 2019, but most trips have been in Europe. I'm based in the southwest of the country, so in Somerset, so it's relatively straightforward and quite easy to get a ferry from Portsmouth or Plymouth or Poole, as we did today from Poole. A trip in France is very simple to do.
Yeah, and we are similar ages. I'm not going to say how old, but we are similar ages. We have similar experience in terms of cycle touring, but there is one difference, and that is that am I correct in thinking that most of your cycle touring has been on your own, but
Yes.
not all of it? Whereas me, all of my cycle touring has been by myself. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. My first overseas cycle trip was at the end of my first year at Portsmouth Poly. I went with a friend called Jeff, who I shared a house with about 8 others, and we got a ferry from Portsmouth to Cherbourg, and over a week and a bit we cycled down the peninsula to Le Mont-Saint-Michel and then came back. And then many years later, my next trip with others, with friends I met from the Cycle Touring Festival, not long after the pandemic, 3 of us met at Open and then did some of the Outer Hebrides.
Right. So now this is crucial to the episode and the next episode of the podcast. But before we talk about that, it's a bit ironic actually, because the last episode of the podcast I interviewed the journalist Steve Silk, who's written a book about cycling from London to the west coast of Wales, and half of it, until the Welsh border, he does by himself. And when he gets to the Welsh border, he meets up with some friends from Norwich and they cycle the rest of the way. And this is what I said in the last podcast about that transition from solo cyclist to cycling with friends. If I added up all the days I've spent cycle touring, it's probably, I don't know, I've never really thought about it, but you're probably talking 6 months-ish, something like that. And I think every single day has been by myself. Occasionally you meet somebody or bump into somebody and I'll cycle with them for half an hour. I did it once with a chap in Switzerland, actually, who was called Claude Butler, believe it or not, and he appears in Le Grand Tour. And that was nice for one day, but I'm glad it was just one day. Nothing to do with Claude, very nice chap. Everything to do with me, because I just like the idea of making all my own decisions, deciding which road I'm going to go down, where I'm going to stop, where I'm going to sit in a cafe for half an hour and do absolutely nothing. If I'm grumpy, it affects nobody. If I make a mistake and I get lost, there's nobody to have an argument with, because it's just my own fault. And you think, well, okay, I'm lost. I'll go and sort myself out. That's what I do. It must have been, I'm not saying it was difficult, but the contrast for you between the two sections in England and then in Wales, where basically you suddenly had to start taking into consideration what other people wanted. And wasn't that a bit of a challenge, bearing in mind you had to do all this research and you were writing the book and, you had your route to go on? Did you have some kind of unwritten agreement before you set off or before you met these friends as to how it was going to work? Right, back to the ferry, and I'm back with Tim. Now, ironically, within a few days of me recording that interview with Steve Silk, I noticed that I think I asked you if you got any plans for the summer, and you said Scotland perhaps, or Ireland perhaps, or northern France.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I wasn't that enamoured by going to Scotland again. I went to Scotland, as did you, last year, on different separate trips, up to the Orkneys and Shetland, Shetland in your case, both in my case, and it was kind of cold and wet, and I do like to alternate being somewhere warm with being somewhere hot. Somewhere cold with somewhere that's a bit warmer, and likewise with Ireland, it's not guaranteed that it's going to be reasonable weather.
Right.
So when you mentioned France, I'm thinking, ooh, France.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind a trip to France, and I suggested to you, would you like a travelling companion? And you said yes, and it was from there that we actually organised this trip. But it is going to be an interesting trip for me because I've never cycled with anybody over a longer period before. So what's your initial reaction to listening to what I said there?
I don't have a huge reaction, but I guess the things that come to mind are, we've both done a lot of cycle touring. It's interesting that we haven't organised it in the sense of we've just got one lot of cooking equipment. We've both got kit that we would normally have on a solo tour.
We'll hold that thought.
Yeah.
We'll come to that in a few minutes. But are you recoiling in horror, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm on a ferry with a man who has just admitted that"?
We've known each other many years, and as you say, we've got similar ideas on many things. I would normally have done a holiday in May. I don't need to have holidays in the school holidays, but through various circumstances, May, June and July weren't so convenient, so that kind of left August. But I would normally avoid school holidays because, well, it can get busy, but I'm expecting in the middle of France it will be relatively quiet.
But you didn't recoil in horror. In fact, your response when I suggested if I could come with you was quite quick, and you said, "Yeah, why not?"
I think some time ago, when you were doing the Grand Tour, we did see if we would overlap at some point, because I was in northern France not that many weeks before you then embarked on the tour.
Yeah, that's right, because I used some of your campsite recommendations. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that there were certainly some sites you went to, and then the one at Gorek that is a really lovely site and very pro cycling.
So we have collaborated before, but not at the same place at the same time. It's kind of been a bit delayed, and actually that was a similar thing last year with Shetland, because you'd been there in May, I think, and I went in August. So there was an element of collaboration, but just not at the same time in the same place. Which brings us to what we're going to be doing over the next fortnight. Obviously, Tim's just mentioned we're on our way to France. We're going to be cycling a route called la Vélo Francette. Now, Tim's an engineer and I'm a French teacher. And Tim, have you got much experience of using AI?
None.
Well, I've started using it in my job. I suppose it's different because basically if it mucks up a bit of French, the consequences of that are a bit less than if you're mending helicopters or building helicopters and AI mucks up the engineering, because you could be in big trouble. But I'm a bit of a convert to AI, and that after you agreed to do this cycle tour, I thought, well, somebody must have written a checklist of things that you've got to talk about. And I thought, well, actually, how about AI? AI could probably come up with a checklist. So I typed into ChatGPT, can you give some advice to an experienced cyclotourist who's only ever cycled by himself, who is going to be cycling with a friend for the first time, as two people on a cycle trip? And lo and behold, it came up with a checklist. Now, here is our checklist. So I've just handed Tim the checklist that ChatGPT came up with, and what we're going to do over the course of the next, I don't know, half an hour, we're going to go through this checklist, and hopefully it will prepare us in advance for what we're about to do in terms of cycling over the next 2 weeks. So it's split up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, 6 sections. Pre-tour communication, which I suppose is what we're doing now, but we're leaving that a bit late. But anyway, packing in equipment, which, well, we've already done that. Route planning, well, that's an ongoing thing. On the road habits, contingency and safety, and then the final thing, potentially the what most problematic, social and mental well-being. Right. So let's start working our way through this. So the first one, it says pre-tour communication. Discuss travel goals and expectations. Right. Tim, over to you. Any thoughts?
Yeah, there's lots of pre-tour stuff we haven't done yet, isn't there? I've got very few expectations other than having a detox from work type break in France, where it'd be nice and warm. And on the warmth front, our expectations will doubtless be exceeded.
Yeah, the weather's looking fantastic, isn't it? And I suppose because we are going to France and it's a familiar country for both of us, I think probably our expectations of that are pretty similar. We're going to be following a named route, the Vélo Francette, which I've done a little bit of before, but not very much of it. So, yeah, I think we're probably similar expectations
I think so,
there. Right, it says agree on daily distance targets. So, what would be your happy distance?
It does vary. I mean, I think on my last French trip, I might have edged about 90k. That was more of an extreme high, but it would typically be between 40 and 60.
Right. Okay. We're talking kilometres there.
Of kilometres, yeah.
Kilometres,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because mine's probably a similar range. Back in 2013, when I did the Mediterranean route, and that was a long journey, no trains, and I averaged 110 kilometres per day of the cycling days, that is.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm not going to emulate that. The Grand Tour, back in 2022, averaged out at 75.
Yeah.
I'm thinking probably more 60-ish on this trip.
I think that sounds a good aim, certainly. I guess the only worry I do have, and it's coming from, having run a marathon 3 months ago, where clearly I was on fairly peak form, and a marathon, running a marathon in no way necessarily gives you the right legs to be doing long distances on a bike. But the last sort of 5-6 weeks, I've struggled with energy. I think I'm back on course now. But I guess the worry I do have is whether doing Cherbourg to Ouistreham, then Ouistreham onwards.
Yeah, we're going to. I think we'll come to that in a few minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we know each other well enough to know. Actually, I'm struggling a little bit.
Yeah. Because the route that we're taking it starts in Ouistreham on the north coast. It finishes in La Rochelle, but it goes inland. Yeah. It doesn't follow the coast. And am I right in thinking 610 kilometres?
650, 610-ish in that sort of order.
So something just over 600.
On the Vélo Francette.
So 10 days of cycling would get us of cycling 60 kilometres.
Yeah.
With a few caveats, but we'll come back to that in a second. Right, next one. Accommodation preferences.
I would typically on a tour camp. I mean, on the Shetland trip, with the exception of the first 2 days in Lerwick, in an Airbnb, it was all camping. On my last French trip, where I went from Nantes, along Loire, up to Saint-Malo, up to Paris, and then training out to Le Mans. Yeah, that was solely camping.
Yeah, my preference is always to camp.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that even if I was a millionaire, my preference would be to camp, because I just like camping.
Yeah. On the trips I've done, if there's somewhere I wish to see, I probably would hotel it. Largely, I know everything's safe.
I tend to use hotels in big cities, but there aren't any big cities on this route.
No, not at all.
So I think, and also the weather. If I get really pissed off with the weather, I'll then dive into a hotel. But I don't think that's going to be a factor here.
I mean, in previous tours, the hotel stays have been Trieste or Bordeaux or what's it, northern Spain? Yeah,
just in bigger cities.
It's small towns and villages we're going through mainly, isn't it?
But there are other options apart from campsites. And have you got any preference? Presumably, you're a fan of the French municipal site. I
do like municipal sites because largely they're run by families rather than big firms. There are other options like warm shower. I've never used warm showers, largely because I've never felt in a position that I could offer it back. I think it's a brilliant concept. I know you have. I know other people that use it a lot.
Would you consider using warm showers on this trip if we?
Oh, most definitely.
If we thought it was appropriate. Yeah. I haven't looked into it. I don't know whether there are many people around.
On the basis that at least one of us has and does offer it reciprocally.
Okay. And there's also a thing called In My Garden. There's a few of those kind of things. Would you be?
I'm most definitely up for that. I mean, potentially, that is something I could offer in the future.
I feel a. Was that for animals? I think that was a message for animals. It said animal, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. But I think we're on the same page when it comes to accommodation.
Yeah.
And we're both looking forward to going back to Domfront, where that magnificent municipal campsite.
I never stayed there. I stayed at one a few kilometres further on. It itself was only 4k.
Well, you've got a treat coming. €4.
Yeah.
Apparently the price. Somebody did tell me the price has gone to €5, but
perhaps we can't stay there now.
Well, we'll start saving. Right. Set pace expectations. This is not distance. This is pace.
Yeah.
You're a fast driver. I've experienced that this morning.
Yeah.
Are you a fast cyclist?
No, most definitely not.
Right.
No, I mean, I would say the fast driving was to make sure we got here on time.
Your Honour.
You know, and my trusty 20-odd Audi survived the journey.
So, and how many kilometres? It's difficult to say because it depends where you're cycling and conditions like the weather. But if you say set off at, let's say, 9 o'clock in the morning, how many kilometres would you be expecting to have done by, say, midday?
I've never had expectations like that. I mean, I'm thinking on the Chile trip in 2019, there was one day when I only cycled 12k, but I was quite tired and stopped at a restaurant, asked for if you knew if there's a campsite in 20k. He said, well, there's one here. But I had 3 days to do something like 40k to get to a pre-booked ferry.
Yeah. It's circumstances, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a sort of thing where if there's a coffee stop in 5k, you might as well stop there.
Yeah.
Or if there's one in 20 or 30k, you stop there.
Right.
But going back to the early start, it does mean that with not minimal effort, you can get some quite decent distance in without getting too tired.
Well, early starts actually is the next but one.
Yeah.
It says talk about early starts versus late mornings. I think we're both morning people.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy to be off a campsite at 8 o'clock. Sometimes, occasionally earlier. Although I'm not obsessive about it.
Yeah. I'd say past history. I mean, I don't sleep brilliantly anyway, and I'm quite often awake quite early. But typically, I've tended to just not hurry to go. Leaving at 9, even 10 at times. If I didn't have a huge distance to do, I thought, well, I'm comfy here. I might have a coffee before I set off.
Yeah.
Or, but I'm sensing that I think it does make sense, because I've hardly ever cycled with anyone. There wasn't a time that was set, so it was a case of once I'm in, let's go.
Yeah. But the key thing is that when you're on your own, you see, you can if you're feeling as though you just want to get off the place, you can just pack up and shoot off. Whereas when you're two, you've got to kind of judge that moment as to what does the other person want to do.
Yeah. I have got out of the habit of getting out of getting out early, because my wife does tend to sleep in late, and we were talking, I was at a festival last weekend, the Fairport Convention Festival, which is in Banbury, and it's a relatively small festival, 6,000 people there, but there's a very narrow road for which half of the campsite need to go through. Well, waking early, I was out in the field by 6, and being up at that time, seeing the mist lying on the grass, I'd forgotten how nice early mornings are.
It is. I mean, especially when the weather's nice, it is by far the most beautiful time of the day. It's quiet. There aren't many vehicles around. There aren't many people around. You can hear nature. And the other thing is, I really like the early mornings, because you're not worrying at all about the accommodation that you need to find for tonight.
Yeah.
And that is so nice, those first few hours of the day. So definitely, I am a morning person.
Yeah. And seeing the sunrise this morning on the way in.
Yeah.
I mean, the sun kept moving around, I guess.
Yeah.
With the motion blur, but.
Well, it did from your car. Right. Okay, we've missed one, and it's an important one. How do we handle disagreements or needing space? So, for example, let's think about early mornings. You are, say, desperate to get off a campsite, and I don't know, perhaps I've had too much red wine the previous night, and how do we make sure that that's not really a disagreement, that's just a difference of opinion, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we were
I don't foresee
to argue,
disagreements. I mean, I mentioned Jeff earlier, who I with my first cycling trip.
Yeah.
And on that trip, I just happened to have a tent. Up until then, my cycle touring experience had been the day of my last O level, and having read Nick Crane's book, Cycling in Europe, which I think I had out on permanent loan from Hale's own public library from age 14 onwards, and that spoke out such countries like Yugoslavia, and as well as France and Switzerland, and that's kind of got my interest in cycle touring, and I think that must have rubbed off talking to Jeff with the others in the digs, because he said, I quite fancy doing that.
And did you ever on that tour?
Did you ever
argue?
We did. But I was going to say, on that tour, we just had my tent, so we were quite physically close to each other. I don't, for 1 minute, remember what we fell out about, and it wasn't particularly serious. I think we just spent a few hours apart, and of course, without mobile phones to say, "Oh, where are you?"
Yes. I think needing, sometimes you do need space.
Yeah.
I think it is almost to be encouraged that from time to time you say to me, Andrew, can we just meet back here in an hour, or I'm going to go and cycle ahead for half an hour. And I think that's perfectly normal. I will never be offended by wandering around a village on my own because you want to do the same thing for half an hour. I think that's quite a healthy thing.
I think so, yeah. The thing I've always missed from being on my own is is when you go to a supermarket, your bike's there. You don't want. Yes, you can lock it up, but the chance that now is that we don't necessarily both need to go into a supermarket. We can go in one by one.
That is a perfect moment to listen to the thoughts of Rob Ainsley. Rob Ainsley, who provides the music to this podcast. I asked him, because he's a very experienced cycle tourer, he does it by himself sometimes, but occasionally, quite a lot of the time, he does it with other people. He's got various friends that he does it with. And I asked him to record a few thoughts. Now, Rob Ainsley, he is the Simon Calder of the cycle touring world, is Rob Ainsley. And he recorded this monologue. He was no doubt heading off in some exotic direction, but he recorded it in the middle of York Station, which is why you've got York Station in the background. So have a listen to what Rob Ainsley has said.
So, travelling by yourself versus travelling with someone else, it's possibly the fundamental question about any bike tour. Are you going to go it alone, or are you going to do it with company? And I think we can sort of rule out travelling in 3s or 4s or 5s. That's more travelling in a group, and that's a different thing. What we're talking about is the 1 versus 2. It's, are you by yourself, or are you going to go along with somebody? Certainly, having 2 people solves all sorts of practical problems. And from a practical point of view, I think it's always easier when there's 2 of you. Things like getting cheaper accommodation. It's a lot easier to get a twin room or a double room than it is a single room, particularly on a budget. You can spread the loads. You can, one person can take the tent, the other person the camping equipment, and the cooking equipment, all that kind of stuff. Food will be cheaper. 2 can eat as cheaply as 1. It's better for security. One person can watch the bike while the other person goes to the toilet or does some shopping or whatever. And even things like photos, it's a lot easier when you've got the 2 of you. You can take your joint selfies, or you can take pictures of each other, and you'll come back with a better set of images. But practicalities that's not just what cycle touring is about. And I think we come to quite a central question, which is, why do we go cycle touring? And it's something the media often gets wrong. Of course, cycle touring is about the sights and the sounds and the culture and the food and the drink and the mountain passes and everything. But it's about more than that. It's about a higher level than that. And cycle touring is about freedom, it's about flexibility and control. And it's that control element particularly that changes when you're travelling with somebody else. The reason I cycle tour is because it's the one time in my life when I actually do feel in control of what I'm doing, in control of my resources and in control of my time. So much of modern life has the illusion of control, but we're not really in control at all. We don't really have agency. When we're online, we're always battling websites and advertisers and Facebook, who are desperate for our time, they're desperate for our attention. Driving a car is the classic example of lack of agency, the illusion of control. You don't own the car owns you. The advert showed the car driver on an empty alpine pass speeding along in this wonderful landscape. In fact, the reality is you're sat in the rain in a traffic jam in a one-way system on a wet Tuesday. You don't own the car owns you, all that kind of thing. But on a bike, that's when I feel I can actually go at my own pace, go where I like, stop when I like. And that's inevitably compromised when there's 2 of you. Everything becomes a negotiation. And sure, having the company can have lots of benefits as well. The other person might notice things that you haven't noticed. Oh, look, there's a kingfisher over there, or look, there's that really cool cafe, let's stop there. It can be a morale booster. You can pool your expertise and your skills. Languages, for example, if you've got a language they haven't, and vice versa. And there's just that feeling a bit better that if something goes wrong, if you take a tumble or you have a mechanical, there's somebody else who can assist. So in the kind of emotional side of things, there's definitely pluses and minuses. for me, most of the time I prefer being by myself. The pleasure I get from just being in complete control of my own schedule and my own resources, and when I stop and when I go and how far I go, that's very precious to me. I have travelled very many times with other people, with friends and people I didn't know before, and partners and whatever. And you learn some tactics. I think one of the vital things, which has taken me a long time to learn, is things do go wrong. However good friends you are, there'll be things that annoy you. You know, they leave the toilet lid down and you want it up, or vice versa. And I think the best way is just recognise when these things happen and acknowledge and apologise. You know, bring it out into the open and make it a point of amusement rather than a point of resentment, because it can be a bit easy to try and ignore these things, and they can actually build up into resentment. But that said, I think I've had lots of really good experiences of cycling with people. And two things I'd end on is, it's an intense thing, particularly if you're sharing a tent. You know, this is bringing you together in quite an intimate way. And there are two situations that I think cycling with somebody can be really good. One is the catching up with old friends you haven't seen for a while. I've had some really good experiences of people I hadn't seen for maybe 10 or 20 years, friends I knew from primary school. And I did the King Alfred Way a couple of years ago with one, and it proved really successful. It was just really good fun, because on a cycle tour you have that time to discuss things, and there's maybe not that pressure of having to present everything in your life as a triumph or a tragedy. You can just catch up and say how your life is and how things are, and that's something I found has always worked pretty well, that meeting up with old friends. If there's someone you haven't seen for a while and you'd like to meet up with them, try going for a bike ride. It could well be a good way of catching up. And the other one, of course, is it's a very good way of testing a new relationship. If there's someone that you want to see, how much mileage is there in this relationship, you'll soon find out if you go on a cycle tour together. It's a very good way of destruction testing or stress testing a new relationship. And 31 years ago, I met somebody on a towpath in Bath. She was on a bike, and we looked at each other and thought, oh, they're a cyclist. And within a few weeks we'd gone on a bike tour together, and we've been on quite a few bike tours together since, and 31 years later we're still together. So it can be a pretty good test. So good luck on your mission. I hope you have lots of fun. I hope you can enjoy the extra dimension, the extra perspective that you bring to each other, and have a great trip.
So Rob actually mentioned exactly that point that you were just making about the practicality of, for example, one person going into a supermarket while somebody stands outside and looks after the bikes, which is always a bit tricky if you're by yourself. Any other reactions to what Rob has just said there?
The fact that the whole dynamics change, and that, you know, when you're on your own, you only have to answer to yourself, and you think, oh, I'll go left, and you might not even need to indicate. You just head off left and off you go.
He made a good point about being honest.
Yeah.
If there are problems, then you've got to be honest about them and say, look, hey, there's an issue here, because you know, whatever has happened, and just be honest about it.
Yeah, and I think that's all good advice.
I'm sure some of the other things that Rob did say there will be picked up on as we continue our conversation. Now, the next section is packing and equipment. Now, basically, we're on the ferry. We have packed.
Yeah.
So unless we throw something overboard, which probably wouldn't go down very well with Brittany ferries, we're stuck with what we've got.
Yeah.
It says here, courtesy of ChatGPT, the first thing it's come up with is split shared gear, tent, cooking gear, tools and spares, first aid kit. Right.
Oh, we've done none of that.
Well, we haven't, have we? But You did mention this earlier when you were sharing a tent with your friend.
Yeah.
We are not sharing a tent, thank
We're
God.
not sharing a tent.
Although we do have identical tents, and that might cause problems if I come back from the middle of the night from the toilet.
I did mark my name on it. I forget where I think it was Chile. It might have been after Chile, but there were quite a few other tents like mine, so I just marked on my name. So, but that will be difficult to spot when it's dark.
Yeah. Well, I'll pay particular attention. Cooking gear. We've both brought cooking gear.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell me what you have brought?
I have got 2 cans of gas.
2 cans? Have you brought a hob with you?
No. Largely because I find on a 2-week tour that I'll go through 1 1/3.
Right.
And
I do have an increasing number of cans at home with about 1/3 full of gas.
Yeah. So on the festival last weekend and on the trail running festival called Love Trails that was in July on the Gower in South Wales, I took several remaining third containers to use them up. So on a tour like this, where I know there will be decathlons and other places where we can get the gas, but having the gas from day one is something you don't need to find.
I have half a gas canister, so I think we're going to have enough gas.
That's where one can go straight away.
Yeah, but you brought a little attachment to screw onto the top as a gas burner, presumably.
Yeah, so I have 2 burners, only one with me. I have a pocket rocket that I've had many years, but when I tried to use that a few weeks ago, nothing came out. So there's a blockage somewhere, which is surprising given it's gas.
Yeah.
But I have an Alp kit, one with about a 30 centimetre flexible pipe.
Right, so we've got, in terms of just basic cooking equipment, we've got a similar equipment. I've also got my collapsible Sea to Summit pot, which is really very, very useful. I've also got my octagonal coffee pot.
Oh yeah.
And I brought the large one, so I can certainly make you a coffee in the morning. But it's probably worth mentioning at this point, in terms of to what extent are we going to be eating in a restaurant or getting a pizza from the campsite or cooking our own pasta and pesto?
I mean, I'm game for all options. I like food. I would typically have breakfast and coffee before I go, but I will also probably have another one in a boulangerie further on. I kind of take the view that of the small restaurants that have maybe you're probably less likely to find restaurants in a municipal campsite, but the slightly larger ones will have their own restaurants. And I take the view that, well, actually you're supporting the local economy. So no, I'm game for pizza. The one complication I worry is that I am now vegetarian, and I suspect that will be less easy than the UK. But again, I'm sure there'll be easy options.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not vegetarian, but I don't eat much meat, and it's certainly not an issue for me in terms of if we were to, share food in terms of cooking for each other. I have brought with me and I do this every time, my emergency stock of quick cook spaghetti and pesto sauce. And I say emergency, it's not always emergency, that emergency can sometimes be because I'm just so ravenous.
Yeah.
If it's been a really long day and I think, God, I need carbohydrates, and I cook that and it just hits the spot.
Yeah.
But sometimes, probably more often than I'd like to think is appropriate, I will just buy a baguette, a bit of cheese, some ham, and that will be my main meal for the evening. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, apart from the ham, that would typically be that wouldn't be untypical of a lunch.
Cheese.
Yeah.
Well, there are plenty of cheeses in France.
Absolutely, there's no shortage of cheese in France.
Well, that was de Gaulle's famous quote, wasn't it? How the heck are you supposed to run a country when there's a a cheese for it every day of the year, I think he said. Something along those lines. The tools and spares actually were not obviously, we're obviously cycling different bikes.
Yeah.
And is there any commonality between any spares that we might have? I've got quite thick tyres. I think yours are a bit thinner.
Yeah.
So the inner tubes are probably...
the tool I have that you won't have because you don't need it is a S&S coupling wrench.
Is that for the...
Because the bike was split into two.
Oh, of course, yes. Yeah.
And although I won't be splitting the bike, I will periodically make sure the nuts are still tight.
Yeah, I mean, you're an engineer. I'm a French teacher, so if they, I hope you don't mind me subcontracting any mechanical problems on my bike to you.
I'm sure I can manage that. I mean, I've got spoke key. I built both wheels on that bike. In fact, I bought that bike frame on eBay.
Just to clarify, can you tell people what bike you're...
Yeah, so I have a Surly Troll, which I bought in 2015 on eBay. Just a frame. I then built it up.
I did have to change the inner tube on my new bike at home a few weeks ago, and I'm still showing the scars on my fingers. Say yes or no. Navigation tools?
Yes.
Yes. Phone and charge power bank?
Yes.
Water capacity?
I have 2 Cycle Touring Festival bottles.
And I have 2 identical, even the colours are the same, aren't
Goodness
they?
me.
Basic repair knowledge, no.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Check bike compatibility, well, we've already discussed that. Route planning. Now, we're following the Vélo Francette. So actually the route itself is planned. We just need to follow the signs if we can find them. And you've got a GPS track of the route on your phone, I think?
Yes, yeah.
Now, we do have this problem that our ferry is arriving in Cherbourg and the route starts in Weestrum, and they're about 100 kilometres at least away from each other. So, and basically this is an imminent problem because we're arriving in Cherbourg in
3 hours.
3 hours time. So what are we going to do?
Well, we can very quickly cycle east or get a train. I think
which would you prefer?
If I was on my own, I probably would do the train to Caen. I probably wouldn't then backtrack to Weestrum, if only because on my last French, it wasn't the French trip, but on the way back from the Paranzana Trail and the Munich to Venice, the Venice to Munich Trail, the last train in France took me to Caen, and so I've cycled from Caen to Weestrum before. Okay.
It's getting very windy on this ferry.
Is.
I hope we can still be heard.
Yeah.
I think they must have changed direction. How about, because I was looking at this earlier, when I went to charge my things, how about we get the train from Cherbourg to Bayeux, which is not far from Caen.
And then follow the coast.
And then go to the coast. Bayeux is just south of Arromanches.
Yeah.
Have you been to Arromanches? It's very popular with people who visit the area for the World War II.
I've not been there. No.
Landing beaches. There are some campsites in that area by the looks of it, and we could camp there tonight, and then tomorrow cycle a little bit down the coast as far as Weestrum, and pick up the route from the start.
That sounds like a cunning plan.
Right. Okay. Well, in that case, what we'll do is we'll definitely catch the train. There is a train at, I think it said 3:15, which kind of fits in okay.
I think when I looked, there were trains almost every hour.
Okay. Well, when we finish this conversation, we'll try and sort that out in detail. But that sounds like a plan. Right. Identify known food resupply points. It's France.
Yeah.
Should we move on?
I think so. I mean, I'd add on the navigation front, with the OSM and app, that has supermarkets, shops, all your amenities, campsites listed. So we won't have to. I don't think. And as you say, this is France. Okay, the small villages may not have shops anymore, but some will.
Save emergency contacts and exit points. Does that refer to? I'm not sure.
Well, I guess what you don't have is my wife's phone number.
No.
And I don't have any numbers of your family members.
No, we should perhaps.
Yeah.
Although on my lock screen, in fact, I need to change it back. On my lock screen on the phone is my ICE, my emergency contact number. But we will do that. Right, choose a route style. It says here again because we're following a route. I'm having followed quite a few of these named French routes.
Yeah.
They are predominantly off-road and they are very scenic, so I think that's kind of been done for us.
Yeah.
Right, this is a biggie though. Decide how to navigate. One leader, alternating or shared?
I actually have no preference. I think we'll work that one out as we go along.
Yeah, I think we're going to be following signs.
Yeah.
I do have a pet hate, however. And I did experience this recently when I went on a ride with a very good friend, but he kept telling me where to go in terms of turning left and right, and I was thinking, shut up, I can see the sign, I don't need to be. So that might be if I give you a glare.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I've just picked up quite a useful cue from that last from the last few minutes.
Yeah, it is getting very, very windy on this ferry. I think what we need to do is we need to find. In fact, it's getting quite misty as well. Are we approaching a storm? I don't know.
Yeah, the heat wave has just finished.
We're gonna go and find somewhere else to continue this conversation. As we do this, have a listen to this. This is a new ferry service that is going from Dover to Boulogne in France, and earlier this week I had the chance of interviewing the skipper of the service. So while we go and find a more amenable place to sit and not freeze, have a listen to this chap talking about how you could potentially travel from Dover to Boulogne with your bike on a very different kind of ferry.
Hi, my name's Andrew Simons. I'm the founder of Saillink.
Now, Saillink is a new service, basically ferrying people across the channel, and I've heard about it a few times. I think I heard about it on social media, and then a couple of weeks ago somebody called Helen Rivers, who's one of your customers, she emailed me. This is what she said: it was a fantastic experience. As soon as we arrived at the quay, our bikes were lifted on board by the young fit crew and stored safely in the spacious cabin out of reach of salt spray. We were offered tea, coffee and snacks. The border officials came on board to check passports, all very informal and good-humoured. The crew explained what was going on and involved the passengers in the sailing. It took 4 hours to Dover Marina, where, again, border control was quick and easy. There were 5 other passengers on our crossing, 2 of whom were cyclists. Everyone was very friendly. Superb! Exclamation mark. So she's a real fan.
Sounds like a normal passenger, that, Andrew.
Where did this idea come from?
Just my own experiences and needs, really, because I started out as a boat builder and doing a bit of sailing, and at some point I moved to the continent, and because of English, of course, trying to get back and forth between the two, and trying out every method of doing it, and thinking of why is it not possible just to sail across, have a nice time, and instead of having to use, either the vehicle ferries when you're not going with a car, or if you don't want necessarily to go between Paris and London on a train. So it was just sort of thinking, hang on, there's something missing here. If I feel there's something missing, then maybe others do too. Something designed for foot passengers and cyclists just travelling coast to coast. And
are you a cyclist?
Oh yeah. But of course. But I also use the Eurostar when I need to. I like to travel by train, and then sometimes I like to take my bike, and then so that I've got the mobility when I get to my destination, and I don't have to go and look for a bike. I've got my own little folding bike, and just allows you that freedom at your destinations, or just to get to the station in the first place. And then of course you get to the coast by train, but you've got to link that up with somehow getting across the channel, if that's what you want to do. So again, linking up trains, cycle routes, that sort of thing. So I thought, there's surely a better way of doing this.
And when you first came up with the idea, did you have in your mind pedestrians or cyclists more?
Pedestrians or cyclists? Just both. Thinking, it's. I mean, you can easily get bikes on a small boat. So, both. But then gradually you realise, well, actually, it's the cyclists who have the least options, because they can only go with the vehicle ferry, really. So I thought, well, that's certainly a good market to go for. Lots of cycle tourers nowadays. And so, that will surely fit to their travel ideas, that there's looking for a bit of adventure, not just trying to get A to B.
So what are the logistics of doing this? Obviously, most people will probably have travelled from Dover to Calais in the traditional way, in the ferries. If I arrive with my bike in Dover, would I go down to the normal ferry area, or are you somewhere else in Dover Harbour?
Yeah, so the whole thing with this is I wanted to connect towns and not out of town ferry terminals, big infrastructure, not made for cyclists and foot passengers. So yes, the idea was really to go between towns, and by taking only a maximum of 12 passengers, we can use the marinas or the smaller port facilities. And so that's what we do. We go from Dover Marina, which is it's quite close to. It's just a short walk from the town. It's 20 minutes from the station, and boarding is quick and easy, like Helen was saying.
And the Dover Straits, it's famous for being one of the busiest, if not the busiest, maritime routes in the world, I think. Is it actually quite tricky, your small craft kind of weaving a way across the channel?
There's plenty of space. There are a lot of ships going, but it is a big patch of water, really. The ships are relatively small on that, so there's plenty of space between them. Sometimes, we have to wait, or we just go around the back of them as they're going across our bows, and or we may have to just hold off as 2 or 3 go past. That's very rare, really, though. But they can be quite close together sometimes.
Yeah, and I suppose that's all part of the experience, isn't it? Seeing these big ships relatively close up as you cross over to the continent.
Yeah, it is certainly an aspect to it. I'd rather see dolphins, but we see quite a lot of ships, yeah.
How many times do you sail across per day, per week? What's the timetable?
At the moment, it's a bit sort of, it differs week to week. It's because we're quite a bit of a restricted operation at the moment. I'm the only skipper, and then doing the business as well on my days when I'm not skippering. And it's just, we're just setting this business up. We've only been going since April, so we're still finding our feet and getting ourselves really habitualized into the procedures. And so we go, well, this week, for example, we're going to go this afternoon, and then we're going to come back tomorrow and go again back tomorrow to France. And then we're coming back on Saturday, so that's 4 crossings in 3 days, and then the next crossing is not till next Friday. So we generally focus them around the weekends, because I think that's when people want to travel. So at the moment it's sort of 3 days a week, 3-4 days a week.
And has it proved quite popular?
It's proving more and more popular as more and more people get to know about it. So we've just got one passenger coming on board right now. I'm just going to introduce myself, say hello. Hello there.
Hiya.
Andrew.
Ian.
Hi, Ian. Come in and sit down.
Is Ian with his bike?
No, Ian is not with his bike today. Ian is looking like it's going for a small night or weekend just in Boulogne.
Right, okay. And I'm just interested, how did Ian hear about your service?
I shall ask him, how did you hear about this, Ian, if you don't mind me asking?
Something popped up on my laptop, whether it was an advert or just a news item.
Okay.
I can't
Something from MSN or something like that, or something like, okay.
Yeah, I just happened to spot it on the laptop. But that's an interesting thing to do.
Okay, good. So really randomly out of the ether a bit there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And what's the plan for the future? Can you continue into the winter, for example, or is it just a summer service that you're going to be running?
I'm planning that it's just a seasonal service operating for the period of British summertime, basically. So end of March to end of October. And I think the winter is just not, basically, well, I don't want to sail in the winter. I don't know what everybody else does. There are nice days, but it's getting them, and then you're planning for them, which you can't really. And, the boat takes a hammering and we need the time to plan for next season and get the boat back in shape, do some improvements.
And can you envisage a day in the future where perhaps it's not just Dover to Boulogne, that perhaps you go to, ferry ports further down the coast?
Absolutely. I think what we're demonstrating with this and finding, making our experiences in, is basically just traversing the channel by wind or wind supported by motor when things are not suitable, but predominantly wind. And that of course can be extended to longer routes. The geography of the English Channel is, when we're not operating here, Dover-Boulogne, then going any further west, it's immediately quite a bit longer. And so then it's the question, what are we offering, what do passengers want on a longer crossing, what do they need? And I think we look to scale up to bigger boats, more facilities on board. But if basically, the wind is there, if it can work for a small boat, it works for a big boat. And what it's also demonstrating is that all of those cross-channel ferries that are operating now could have some form of wind assist propulsion. Those technologies are no longer pie in the sky. They're there, and so I'm sort of exposing them a bit why they're not doing it.
And just to finish off with, I think probably most people listening to this will have been sold on the idea just after listening to what Helen Rivers said at the beginning. But if anybody is interested in taking your ferry, how do they go about actually getting a hold of a ticket and seeing the timetable?
So they just go onto the website. All the information is on there. Saillink.co.uk, Saillink with double L. And there's the timetable on there. It's not, I have to be honest, it's not as clear as I'd like it to be. I'd like all the sailings to be visible on one side, but you've got to sort of switch between one direction and then the other if you want a return. But it's all on there, and then it's a booking system. And you have to give in your details, because we need your passport details to forward to the border authorities on both sides. So that all gets entered there, and then I can forward that. And payment is taken there. We take currently 50% on the booking, and then the other 50% is taken close to the time.
Okay. And what's it looking like this afternoon for this sailing?
Great. Good English Channel conditions. It's a nice day, nice enough. It's not glaringly sunny. Good wind. It's going to be a good crossing. Looking forward to it. Okay,
well, I hope you have a good sailing and good luck in the future with the Saillink venture. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks to Helen.
Right, Tim, what's your immediate reaction to hearing about that sailing link between Dover and Boulogne? Would you take it?
I certainly would. I think it's extremely interesting. There are a few novel ways open to cyclists to get to France, one being the European Bike Express, which I've never done because it tends not to follow it doesn't follow through my part of the country, so I'd have a hike to get there. But going back to Saillink, I think that's fascinating. I mean, I do have an interest in boats, as we have discussed earlier. It supports very much the flow travel, and what we do, we're not necessarily trying to get from A to B, and actually by and large we're going from A to A, aren't we?
Yeah, it's all about the journey, and I think my cousin, he once said to me, it's not a James Bond movie if they don't have an underwater scene. But in my book, it's not a cycle tour if you don't have a ferry ride at some point in the cycle tour. And I think what Andrew is doing is taking it to a whole new level. So I would love to take that ferry, and I think next time I consider going to that bit of the continent, I'll certainly consider, hopefully it will still be done in the future. I'll certainly consider it.
I mean, the reason why I might not take it are that where I'm based in Southwest, I've already got 3 really convenient routes to get there. But that said, you know, if you can get yourself to Dover, if you're going east, if you're going towards Belgium, the Netherlands, North Germany, and then Scandinavia, then that actually is extremely doable.
Well, good luck to Andrew and his colleagues with the Saillink. Now, we've moved on. If you remember, before we listened to Andrew talk about Saillink, we were on a ferry. We're not on a ferry because it got very windy and it was getting a bit misty outside. We went back inside, and we're now the following day. So what day of the week is it now? It's now Wednesday. Wednesday, yes. What date is it?
13th.
The 13th of August. And what happened yesterday, we arrived obviously in, where did we arrive?
At Cherbourg.
Cherbourg, that's right. We arrived at Cherbourg. We decided, I think linking to what we'd said earlier actually, we decided to take the train down to Bayeux, which is what we did. And then from Bayeux we cycled a short distance north back to the coast at Arromanches, which is famous for the Mulberry Harbour and all the events of the D-Day landings. We camped in a place just to the east of Arromanches called Asnel. Very, very busy, but they squeezed us in. It was a municipal site. And then this morning we've set off and we're headed in the direction of Ouistreham. And it's when we get to Ouistreham that we'll pick up the route of the Vélo Francette, which is going to be the topic of the next episode of this podcast. But remember, this episode is always trying to figure out whether, well, quite frankly, whether solo cycling or cycling with a friend is a good or a bad idea. And we have our checklist, and we're working through our checklist, and we're going to finish going through it. I think we got as far as on-road habits.
Yeah.
Right, so we've got various things here. Let's quickly whip through them. Talk about how often to stop. Well, we haven't formally talked about that so far.
No, I mean, we stopped at the Boulangerie, right by the British Normandy Museum.
Yeah, and we wandered around there for a while. That was quite interesting.
So some food was eaten then, and then at another stop, food was accessed again.
Yeah. I don't think we've stopped formally since, have we?
No.
Although we're now in a place called La Longrune-sur-Mer, next to a memorial to the Royal Marines, and some very blustery flags above us, which you can perhaps hear. Yeah, I think that's. I don't think we need to have a formal agreement regarding that. Although, a word of warning, because I'm going to be making a video about the Vélo Francette, I will perhaps stop at annoying places and spend a few minutes setting up the camera on the floor and instruct us both to cycle past it
and then go back again,
and then go back and turn the camera around and cycle past it again, which everybody knows we do that.
Well, it'll just add to the kilometres on Strava.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm breaking the fourth wall. Sorry, anybody listening who's watched the videos and thinks there's a camera crew following me, I've got bad news. There isn't.
Well, not yet anyway.
And it just takes ages to faff around with your camera. Check-in times. I think, again, morning plan, evening recap, it says here. Yeah, I think as long as we're communicating and reviewing our plans, things change.
It just happened organically this morning. I was probably awake for a while, as I guess you were. And at a certain point, I thought, well, start packing. I mean, I don't have food to make breakfast, so we aimed for eating out later via boulangerie. So it wasn't like there were hours spent cooking porridge and washing up and packing away all the cooking equipment.
And I think basically because we're in France, the best place for breakfast is your local boulangerie.
Yeah.
But what did you think of my coffee?
Oh, that was perfectly agreeable, thank you.
Yeah, agreeable. It's hardly a ringing endorsement. Perfectly agreeable.
Well, I mean, that's sort of a Bill Baileyism in that that's high praise.
All right, okay. Fair enough. Well, you'll hopefully be getting a coffee every morning between now and La Rochelle. Respect different energy levels. Now you got connected to this potentially. You got a bad back.
Yeah. Yes. On the train, I leant over my bike, holding nothing, and all of a sudden, I had a sharp pain which I wasn't aware. Was not planned or anything. So I'm taking that a bit carefully. I suspect it may have been slightly overdoing it on a workout a few days before that's caught up.
Yeah. Well, you must say,
it turns out that the body doesn't work quite as well as it used to in one's late 50s.
Yeah. But you must say, if that becomes an issue, don't suffer through your pain. If we need to slow down or we need to stop for a while. I remember cycling in 2013, yes, and I was cycling at the Adriatic coast through Croatia, and I had massive problems with my lower back, and I spent several hours cumulatively lying on the concrete floor of bus shelters because they were wonderfully flat.
And probably nice and cool.
Yeah, they were cool as well, but that in the short term it kind of solved the problem.
Yeah.
Now
it's just getting off the bike that I found is hardest work. Continuing cycling is easier.
Right.
Starting off cycling is purely muscular.
Well, if you do need to do anything like lie down on a flat surface, then just give us a shout.
Yeah, thank you. If nothing else, it'll give a talking point for when we review these at the end of the trip to see what worked and what didn't work.
Yes, yeah. We haven't ticked these. There is a box to be ticked. Perhaps we should tick them at the end, see if actually we achieve them. Take turns making decisions to stay balanced.
Well, there's hardly a decision to be taken, are there? We're following a set route, but I mean, as you say, we'll be stopping for video footage, and doubtless there'll be a point one needs a restaurant or.
Yes, but also if you see something that you want to kind of just stare at, that's the nicest thing.
Yeah, I might see an old car or something. Or
yeah. I think that's one of the beauties of being on a bike is the fact that you don't. If you're in a car, because certainly if you're a passenger in a car, you're not driving it. You can't immediately stop it. And if you are in a car and you're driving it and you see something, you've probably got a car behind, or you're probably in an inconvenient place. On a bike, just pull your brakes on and stop. That's one of the beauties of being on a bike, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't hold, think more as a cyclist rather than a car driver if you do need to stop.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, next section, contingency and safety. Sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? Right, share medical details.
Haven't done that yet.
Well, I don't have any medical details to share, I don't think.
No.
Apart from your bad back.
Yeah. Yeah, that was unplanned and unexpected.
Allergies, have you got any allergies?
Hard work? No, actually I don't think I do have that.
I've got a few intolerances, but they're not medical.
No way we're going there.
Right, ice contacts. Now, my ice contact, if you go to my phone, which actually is just there, don't touch it now because it's recording, but if you go to my phone when it's locked and touch it, you'll see my ice contact, which is my brother. Perhaps you need to message me Louise's phone number.
I would normally, I didn't bring it with me, normally have my park run wristband,
but
but
that's a good idea.
On the basis that park runs are now not happening in France.
Yes.
I didn't bring that.
Yeah, they're banned, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right, discuss money handling. Right.
Well, we kind of did that automatically in that we knew roughly that either I was in credit by €10 or vice versa, and it all balanced itself out with what we did.
It does, but we've got to be careful there because
Yeah.
it can get complicated. so far it's worked, and I think we're just on an even keel.
Yeah.
There are apps you can. I'm not suggesting we
I
do this.
was about to say that.
But you can
Yeah.
download an app, can't you?
Yeah.
Have you used that before?
Never.
I might look at that later.
No, the point that it would have been useful to say that the dating years were long since gone by the time that app came about.
But apparently these apps allow, one's called Splid, I think, and allow you to share your expenses. I might look into that later. Right, have a backup plan if someone needs to stop early.
Well, we don't really have a backup plan, but I'd say that because of where we are going, that backup plan will change from day to day. At the moment, we could cycle south and get a train back to Cherbourg and then go back that way, or further down there's routes from Caen, and then when we get to Loire. So a backup plan, if one needs to go home, would change from day to day.
Yeah, the backup would be to take the train, and even if we were running out of time.
Yeah.
When we get to, for example, that name I've forgotten the place of, just inland from Niort, you can definitely get a train from Niort down to La Rochelle, because I took it back in 2022.
Yeah.
So things like that, there are train options available if we need to pick
My
up time.
driving licence is in the wallet, so there's always car rental, although we wouldn't talk about that on a bicycle podcast.
Yeah, and also it'd have to be a big, I mean, you'd have to hire a people carrier or something to get the bikes on board.
I've done that before and rented a car in California, but that was me on a solo trip on the California coast, getting towards the end of my available time. So I got a car back, went back to work, and then flew back the next day with that car.
I think trains are a better option, and you never know. I'm not against the idea of you saying to me, Andrew, I need a day cycling by myself, or even half a day. I'll meet you in that town at that point, at that time, roughly, just to kind of, to give ourselves a bit of space.
It's always an option, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can always be discussed.
Right, the final section, social and mental well-being. Respect personal downtime needs. Now, this I think refers to not being in each other's company all the time. I think that is quite important. Now, we fortunately have different tents, and I think it might be important just to go off. I mean, for example, I'm going to be recording a podcast for the Vélo Francette, so there will be points where I said, this is not really downtime, or it might be for you, but I will say to you, I just need to go over there and record something.
Yeah.
It'll be an introduction. I'll do it later this afternoon, for example.
I mean, I have one new thing for me this trip is I've actually bought a book that's made of paper to read, and largely because I'm sure it is better for me to be spending less time on the phone in the downtime, and that would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, and even I think when we finish cycling, tents packed up, sitting down, even next to each other and just not talking.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think last night, in that obviously we started cycling relatively late because we got to the ferry, we then got to the train, so it was getting towards 5 o'clock-ish before we even started cycling.
Yeah.
So when we got to the campsite, there weren't exactly hours to think, right, what are we going to do now?
No, but we may get to a campsite, say 3-4 in the afternoon.
Think, why not?
Yeah, and erect the tents and then just have a little bit of downtime. My downtime, I do tend to say, ends up being in a bar, which I'm perfectly happy going and sitting in a bar and having a drink by myself. Although I'm not quite at Wetherspoon's level yet.
No.
I'm not there at 9 o'clock with a pint of Ruddle's Counter. But you never know. But we do need to be honest if there are things that are annoying us, or basically, I suppose, as needed feedback is a polite way of saying to somebody, will you just off? Yeah? That's the ChatGPT presumably has been told not to swear. Right, here's an interesting one. Bring conversation starters or games for evenings.
Well, that's certainly something that we do not have.
You haven't brought a pack of cards or dominoes?
I didn't know. I'm not a great game person.
I did think of bringing a pack of cards. I do have some at home. I don't play regularly, but, well, for many, many years, come to think of it. But, and the French, the problem is if you buy a pack of cards in France, they're different. They don't have, I've forgotten what they don't have, but they don't have some of the...
I should imagine they don't have kings and queens anymore.
Well, it's at that end where I think they miss them out. So yeah, we might have to miss that. But I used to have a little book of conversation starters that I used to use at school for when we did something called philosophy for children, and they were just kind of things that would it be better to do this or to do that. But now we've got Google.
We have.
And ChatGPT. Right, the final one. Celebrate wins together, big climbs, rainy day conquered, etc. How do you celebrate?
I normally celebrate having gone up a big hill by thinking, thank goodness that's over. Right, let's cycle down the other side now.
It is nice to have, when I got to the top of the Furka Pass in 2022, I cracked open a massive block, not the ones that you buy in airports or ferry terminals, but a reasonably large block of Toblerone, and I've been saving it. I think I bought it a few days before thinking I'm going to eat this at the top. Now we've got no Furka Pass.
No, I mean for instance, I probably wouldn't go and write a card. Congratulations, Andrew, for climbing that hill today. That might be going a bit far, I think.
I think celebrations might be in the form of food and drink, but in a more formal way in a restaurant or something like that. Right, so that is the end of the ChatGPT checklist. I think basically we've covered, although it is a ChatGPT checklist, it actually is quite a useful thing to do, and we've covered most things that we need to cover. Is there anything that you think has been missed off there?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, my observations are it's quite a general thing. It doesn't know what level of cycling they do. It's sensible points, but
it does though. I told it I was an experienced cyclist.
Yeah.
And it does take those things into consideration. I would encourage you to use ChatGPT. You can have a good conversation with ChatGPT, and it's very polite. And it will check with you, is that okay? Would you like me to change things? Brilliant for French teaching.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm going to be retired within the next 5-10 years, because basically, if you're a French teacher in your 20s now, you're stuffed. Because head teachers will be getting ChatGPT to teach kids in 5-10 years' time. So you've been warned. Okay, now, so this is kind of the end of episode 91 of the Cycling Europe podcast. We are, hopefully in the next hour or so, about to arrive in Ouistreham, which is the start of the Vélo Francette, which is the route that we've come to France to cycle, and that will be the topic of episode 92 of the Cycling Europe podcast. The weather is a bit different than I imagined it to be. It's very overcast, it's quite windy, although the wind's heading in our direction, which is in the direction of Ouistreham, and even now there are slight specks of rain in the air, so I hope it's going to improve. But have you checked the weather forecast?
Not for half an hour. That was showing that Juno Beach, there'll be some raindrops at 6 p.m.
Right, well when I checked back in Britain it was basically blue skies for 2 weeks, but it's yet to materialise. But anyway, right, so thank you for listening. Remember, if you want to get in contact with the podcast, go to cyclingeurope.org/contact. If you would like to help support the podcast, cyclingeurope.org/support. Thank you to Rob Ainsley, not just for his contribution earlier, but for providing the music for this podcast. So we will see you, and you'll probably hear Tim again in the next episode, as we cycle the Vélo Francette from Ouistreham down to La Rochelle. So without further ado, thank you for listening and happy cycling.